today, which I do all of the time because time is important and casual conversations that don't generate revenue are fun, but for somebody who places extreme value on time, I think your time is better spent actually learning something. So we're going to go over a few things. So if you're a real estate person or a business owner, then you are more than welcome to jump up here, chime in, and do all of the things. That link up top, if you guys are on Clubhouse. All right. Rizu, I appreciate you, but you gotta have a picture, man. I don't know what you gotta have a picture, man. So you guys are more than welcome to come up, but if you don't have a picture, then I can't really take it too serious. So we're going to be on again Clubhouse, TikTok, and a bunch of other platforms. I think I'll go for about an hour today because I got to get to work, and we're going to go over a few things. One is if you are starting a business, I mean an actual business. I'm not talking about a hobby. A lot of people don't realize there's nothing wrong with having a hobby. If you want to turn it into a business, just do it the right way, or it's going to be a lot more expensive for you in the long run, to the point where you may just wish you kept it as a hobby. So we have a few resources to help people who are starting businesses. I am, my my expert status diminishes the further we get away from real estate. So for me, I started a few successful businesses, but I bring in consultants when we're training people how to start their business from scratch. And I bring in consultants for the different areas of business that they're going to need. And a lot of people starting a business have no idea where to start, what to do first, who to call. So they gravitate towards, a lot of the free stuff like right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think you should be doing that. A wise group of young students once told me, do what you can where you are with what you have. And that's not a bad thing. But there's very few places where you can go and get everything you need to start your business, and not have to go back. Like you get the final blueprint. Like as soon as you're done with that place, you know exactly what to do from start to finish, who to talk to, what your business plan looks like, what your legal structure is going to be. You have a strategy and planning plan to go ahead and move forward with your business. All of the things. It just doesn't exist. So I wanted to create one. But just because I've had multiple successful businesses, that cross the seven-figure mark, that does not mean that I'm an expert in starting businesses. I just know who to call. So what I did was I reached out to some of my consultants and some newer consultants that I met recently, and I said, "Hey, look, I want to. You guys know how I am about time. I want to create something where people don't have to go all over the world trying to get every aspect of their business taken care of. I want everybody in the same place." And let's examine, and I did this for a few months, every possible scenario someone would have to experience, or someone is likely to experience, when starting or scaling a business. And then we dissected it, and then we dissected it again, and then again, and then again. So every possible thing, regardless of what type of business it is, whether it's products or services, what are they going to encounter and what do they need to know? So once I was able to acquire all of that information, and it took some research, right? Because I'm a real estate guy. My business model was outsourcing, right? So basically, I would position myself as someone who offers a particular business, and then when I got the orders in, because I had the relationships, when I got the orders in, I would just hire other companies to do everything. So I've done that multiple times, and did very well doing that. But I wanted everybody in the same place. So Ventured U is a program that we're going to be rolling out through the Four Data Points Academy. But right now, it is an international business retreat. It's 5 days. This time, it's going to be in Medellin, Colombia. We're only reserving 16 spots for people. We're removing all the distractions. We're taking care of people's ride to and from the airport, and I have every single consultant in the same house. So I'm going to be housing folks, feeding folks, and all of the things. But eventually, you guys will see that as a 3-week program offering. Uh, we're not sure whether it's going to be 3 or closer to 5 weeks. We're putting that together now based on availability and the consultants that I can get virtually after and before our event. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff. and we're going to talk about some real estate stuff. So, like I said, everybody knows me as a real estate guy. Any real estate question that you have, I should be able to answer. There aren't many that I haven't been able to answer, but I typically don't like to close the rooms until we've answered all of the questions. So, that being said, let me sound check. Clubhouse, can you guys put a one in the chat if you can hear me all right on Clubhouse? Just put a one in the chat if you hear me okay. You folks on Instagram, put a one in the chat if you hear me all right on Instagram. And you folks on Facebook, just give me a one. Thank you, Corey. All right. All right. So where do we start? Where do we start in business? We get a business idea, and I'll typically break it down into about 5 or 6 categories, right? Maybe 5. So strategy and planning is one category. Then we get into financial and legal, infrastructure and operations, marketing and sales, product and service development, and then we get into personal and and leadership. And then, maybe once we're positioned correctly, we'll get into to funding and growth, right? So I want to talk about those things that people are going to encounter when they are starting their business. The first thing is, who do you need to talk to first? Business consultants or a startup coach? And people don't always understand what these folks are supposed to be doing, right? Now, a business consultant, they help you refine your business model, they validate ideas, and they create a roadmap. Now, I know quite a few business consultants. I know some very successful business consultants, and they can be effective. Can you always afford a business consultant to come in? Well, not for everybody, right? But if you see something out there that is offering business consulting services that you can't afford, that's something that you should probably gravitate towards. Now, in the strategy and planning phase, you got to have a business plan. And it's not always a business plan to go out there and get funding. And your business plan is not always going to be the end all be all, the final version. It's going to suck at first, but you continue to refine it, because I did my business plan, and I gave it to somebody. And just to give you some context, I needed a business plan because we're looking to scale up to be the largest training platform in the country. So, that's not something, because I'm the face of everything. I have other people working with me, but because I'm the face of everything, then I'm limited to how we can scale, because I have my hands in so many different places. So I came up with a business plan that was probably about 60 pages too long. It was about 100 pages, but I didn't give it to anybody outside of having somebody review it to make sure I'm not missing anything. But it forced me to look at every single detail of my business, and it actually uncovered, some bottlenecks, some places in my business that need extra attention. And it also forced me to look at some future exposure, all in one sitting. All right. So the business plan is something that needs to be handled in the strategy and planning phase. And then market research. So for me, um, my market, we kind of went backwards. So 4 Data Points Academy was really birthed out of necessity. I happen to have a corporate background and a training background. And within the everyday kind of rat race, I was responsible for training people. So there had to be a certain level of professionalism, and I had to be able to have an understanding of systems and be able to, disseminate information in a way that was easily received. And it just so happens that when I started talking about real estate on a much larger platform, I was talking about it because it interests me. I've been doing it. I've been exposed to it my entire life. But what I found was there were so many people out there trying to kind of skew the vision of what real estate investing is supposed to be, and they were misleading people. And then you had every Joe Schmuckatelli, they flip one house and the next day they got a course or a mentorship program, and it was just a bunch of garbage out there. So I actually came up with the 4 Data Points to make sure that, at least, even if I never spoke to somebody again, if they could master those 4 questions: what does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Then at least I know they wouldn't get taken advantage of. So that's where it all started. So I didn't do a lot of market research because I didn't understand that. I didn't think there was a demand for this type of education, real estate investing training. And matter of fact, everything I saw was, $25,000, $35,000 a year. And me being somebody that's been exposed to real estate my entire life, I couldn't understand why it costs that much annually. And then I kind of dissected their business model, and I later went on to see, what it really is. But I didn't have to do a lot of market research because once I jumped into it, I could see the demand for myself. And then I could interpret data on competitors. Once I got an understanding of the demand, then I could put something together to meet that demand in a way that's easily received and for the average person and at a price point where the average person can afford. So that's all strategy and planning, right? Brand strategist is somebody else. It develops your identity, your voice, positioning. That is something that you at least have to take into consideration. Like, what does your brand look like? What do people think of when people hear your name or your company's name? And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong because they incorporate, and this is going to sound bad, but they incorporate too much of who they are into what it is that they're doing. And that comes out in the way that they present themselves. When we start talking about your voice, that comes out in the way you present yourself. All right. Now, if you guys hear my tone and the way I talk most of the time when I'm on these public platforms, it's not a lot of, it's not the way I would be talking at if I was at the barbershop. I'll just leave it like that. All right. So somebody, and the problem with people starting businesses and presenting themselves in a way that not helping their business is people get offended. Right. And I've had to go and have conversations with people and say, hey, look, you got a good product, but you're killing it because you're doing, X, Y, and Z. And I'm just giving you, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just giving you an honest opinion about what we see on the outside looking in. So when you start getting into strategy and planning, those are all the things you got to take into consideration. Now, I'm gonna get into real estate stuff in a little bit, but I wanted to just give you kind of an idea of some of the things that we're going to be going over at this retreat and that program. I don't want to bring it up again because I'm a little more excited to talk about real estate than anything else. Clubhouse, I don't schedule these rooms anymore, so it's just going to be pop up style. If I'm live streaming somewhere else, I'll bring Clubhouse up, but I typically don't schedule these rooms, so you guys aren't going to see me much on here. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them when you get them, or feel free to just come up on stage. There's not that many of you guys. All right. So, and of course, I'm not going to get into the financial, legal, infrastructure, operations, and all those things. We typically will have a conversation with somebody that's starting a business. And once they tell me what their business is, I pretty much know all of the things that they're going to need because we've done the research. And then I have people that are going to be doing some extended research specific to that person's business. So, ventureu.live. That website is up. It's up at I think you guys can see it on Clubhouse. That's the link up top. And if you guys have any more questions, you guys know how to get a hold of me. You folks on TikTok, there's a phone number above my head. Feel free to just text me if you have any questions. Now, let's get into real estate stuff because you guys heard me talk about the 4 data points. 4 data points is 4 questions that we ask ourselves anytime we're considering a subject property. So if, one of my students comes to me and says, hey, I hate that word student, but, for lack of a better word, some of these folks are smarter than I am. When one of my students comes to me and they say, hey, I got this property I want you to look at, I'm going to ask them 4 questions, and then I'm going to ask them to interpret those 4 questions. All right. So what are the 4 questions? What is the cost? What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Those 4 questions, if you master those, it's going to force you to uncover information that you may not have known to ask about as a new investor. So that's why those 4 questions are so important. I came up with those 4 questions to protect people, period. All right. Now, let's interpret those. Let's interpret those questions. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? So I'll take a piece of scratch paper. I know you guys can't see me on Clubhouse, but if I'm tapping to be somewhere and there's some scratch paper, I'll write down 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I just write down 1, 2, 3, 4. And when somebody gives me some numbers, I'll just fill them in. Now, remember, the 4 questions are: what does it cost? What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? So I'm going to use simple math, right? So we don't have to get into, I still need 6 credits to graduate junior college. So I don't do hard math in front of people. All right. So let's say, I'll go to one of these smaller markets where you can still buy a fixer upper for 30, 40,000. Let's say that data point number 1, what is the cost? That's going to be, we'll say 30,000. Data point number 2, what is the cost to fix up? We'll say another 30,000. Data point number 3, What's it going to be worth when I'm done? We'll say it's in a neighborhood where homes are selling for 100,000. How much income can it generate? $1,000 a month. Okay. Now that is the same four questions that you'll ask whether it's a single family home or whether it is a 2,000 apartment development. Okay. Now let me show you. I'm going to write a second group of four also. I'm going to say, what does it cost? We'll get into the second group of four. I just want to write them down so we have it. Let's see. What does it cost, or what am I willing to pay? Right. But let's say, what does it cost? I'll say $95,000. What does it cost to fix up? Let's say, I'll say $15,000. So that puts me in at 110. What's it going to be worth when I'm done? Let's say 130. $130,000. And how much income can it generate? Let's say 900 a month. Okay, we'll come back to that. That's going to be the second round. Okay, because that's going to be a little different. All right, so let's look at the first numbers when we're assessing a deal. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Now, that $30,000 house is just what it sounds, 30 grand. The fix up, the rehab is going to be another 30 grand, and it's going to be worth $100,000 when we're done. Now, this is how I see that right off the bat. This is information that I know right off the bat. I know when that home is finished, I can get an $80,000 mortgage on that home. I already know that. I don't have to do any math. Okay. I know that $80,000 mortgage is enough to cover the $30,000 for the purchase, including my down payment. If there was financing, it's hard to get financing for that low of a loan amount, but assuming there's financing, it's $30,000 I'm all in on the purchase. And there's $30,000 that I borrowed to fix it up. So I'm all in $60,000. That's easy math. Okay. I already know that I might be able to keep this property because, what's up, Ant? I already know that I might be able to keep this property because my cash out refinance is enough to pay all the existing debt, right? Now, you folks on Clubhouse have heard me go through this multiple times. And some of you guys on Instagram, I see if you guys have gone over this with me. All right. So get some more real estate. So I know that I might be able to keep this house. I also know that I can put that new $80,000 mortgage. If I decide to keep this property, I can put that new $80,000 mortgage into my payment calculator. And depending on the interest rate, that's probably going to cost me about $700-800 a month. Let's say $800 a month. Okay. So at the end of the day, I'll be left with a mortgage of $80,000 that cost me $800 a month. Now, data point number 4 is how much income can it generate? Well, we already know it generates $1,000 a month. It costs me $800 a month, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So I know I'm going to cash flow $200. Now I just got to determine, is that cash flow worth it for me to move forward with that purchase? All right. Now, what else does it tell me? It tells me that when I take that $80,000 mortgage out and I pay off the $30,000 for the purchase and the $30,000 for the rehab, that I got $20,000 left. Now, minus points and fees and all that. But for sake of this conversation, I got $20,000 left. That also tells me, because I still own the property, it's not a taxable event. So that $20,000 is tax free. So right off the bat, I can do that napkin math to say, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and put an offer in on this property. Now I can also just flip it, sell it. Right. Remember, I'm all in 60,000, 30 for the purchase, 30 for the rehab. And then once it's all done, it's going to be worth 100,000. I could just sell it for 100,000, pay back the 60. Now I got $40,000 minus points and fees and real estate commissions. If I use a realtor, I can usually sell it myself. I'm a broker in multiple states. But even I can still sell it myself, even if I'm not a broker in that state. You're allowed to sell your own property for sale by owner. And then I could walk away with the whole 40 grand or close to it. Now, I'm going to have to pay taxes on that 40 grand. I'm going to have to pay short-term or long-term capital gains tax, depending on how long I had it. But I can 1031 that into another property, right? But I need to know what I can do before I put an offer in on this property. Okay. Now that's the first scenario. Now I'm gonna do another scenario. Now another scenario is, let's say somebody sends us a property and they say, hey, I got this good deal. I want you to look at it. Now, first of all, never believe somebody when they say it's a good deal. You verify it for yourself. And if the numbers don't tell you it's a good deal, then don't move forward. Sometimes it's not always about, is it a good deal or is it a bad deal? Sometimes it's about, is it in your buy box or is it a good deal for you based on how you're trying to invest at the time? All right. So y'all getting a master class right now. Y'all better see. You know what? Let me put my cash up over here so y'all can No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. All right. So now let's look at the 4 data points on this new property. Okay. Now, what does it cost, or what am I willing to pay? That's data point number 1. So we're going to write down 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So if you got a piece of scratch paper with you, just write down the number 1, below it 2, below it 3, below it 4. Okay. And I'm going to give you these numbers to put in. What does it cost? Well, let's say they want 95,000 for it. Data point number 1. What does it cost to fix up? Let's say it just needs some minor stuff, some cosmetic stuff. 15 grand. That's data point number 2. What's it going to be worth when we're done? Well, what are similar properties in better shape selling for in that neighborhood? 130. That's data point number 3, 130,000. What'll it rent out for? $900 a month. We did a market survey, saw that for this, this type of property gets about $900 a month. All right. Now I can, without doing any math, I already know that what it cost me to buy it and what it cost me to rehab it is really, really close to what it's going to be worth when we're done. So I know I'm going to have to check that number, what it's going to be worth when we're done, because if I do a cash out refinance, they're not going to finance me the entire amount of what it's worth. They're only going to finance me up to 80%. Now there are mortgage products where they'll go higher and lower, but typically 80%. So now that I got those 4 data points, what does it cost? 95,000. What does it cost to fix up? 15,000. What's it going to be worth when I'm done? 130,000. How much income can it generate? $900 a month. Now I can do some basic math. And I always start with data point number 3. Data point number 3 is what's it going to be worth when I'm done, or what's the ARV? Okay. So data point number 3, I look at that ARV and say, okay, well, first, let me see if I'm going to do a cash out refinance. Let me see what that amount is going to be, because I need to make sure it's enough to pay back all the money I borrowed to get here. So 130,000 times 0.80, that's 104,000. Okay. So this is a problem, because it costs 95,000. It costs 15,000 to fix it up. That means I'm in 110, not including points and fees, right? Once you start calculating points and fees, it even gets worse. But I'm in for a core 110. And when I do the cash out refinance, I'm only going to be able to get a mortgage for $104,000, which means if I want to keep the property, that I got to come in with the other 6,000 plus any points and fees. That's not a good cash out refinance situation, right? Now I also have to look at, okay, $104,000 is going to be my final mortgage. Now, because I would have to come in with money on the refinance does not always mean it's a bad thing, but you'll let the numbers decide. If I got to come in with $6,000 on my cash out refinance, is it generating enough money a month for me to leave that money into that deal? Well, it's only generating $900 a month. And that $104,000 cash out refinance, well, let me throw that into my payment calculator and see how much, and see what that's going to cost me a month. Now, let me see. I'm going to just put it in here. I use I'm not going to say which one I use. Just find anyone. These people don't pay me. So, all right. Let's do it at 7. Let's do it 7 3/4. So principal, interest, tax, and insurance, that's going to cost me $925 a month. So this is what those 4 numbers tell me. Now, again, these are the 4 data points we run on every property. For this particular property, the data point number 1, what does it cost? 95,000. Data point number 2, what does it cost to fix up? 15,000. Data point number 3, what's it going to be worth when I'm done? 130,000. Data point number 4, how much income can it generate? $900 a month. And just from those 4 numbers, the first one I go to is data point number 3. How do we find data point number 3? Well, we look at comparable sales in the area and see what similar properties are selling for. We came up with 130. Now, how do we know what our cash out refinance amount is going to be? We just took 80% of the 130, and that came up to 104,000. How do we know whether that's good for us or bad for us? Well, is 104,000 enough to pay back all the money that I put into the property, financed and hard cash? Well, 95,000 is the purchase, 15,000 is the rehab. That puts us at 110. Now we're upside down. That cash out refinance is not enough to cover all of the existing debt. And that existing debt is not debt you want to go on for long term. It's not designed for that. So your situation only gets worse. Now, I can come in with some more money to pay off all that existing debt since I'm going to be short, but I don't necessarily want to do that unless the money that I'm putting into the property can stay there because the income that it generates is a really good return. But in this case, it's not, because it's going to cost us $925 a month to own the property, and it only makes $900 a month. So that is not a good, that's not a good investment. I think most of us would agree. Now let's do another one. Let's run the 4 data points on this this is another actual scenario. Okay. This was in, I try to use the same scenarios over and over so we don't get caught up in the scenario and we can focus on the numbers, but this actually happened. This was in, Jackson, Mississippi. I had some students down there, and I actually flew out there to them just because I was able to do this when we first started. This was some years ago, but I was able to do this when we first started because when people signed on to our mentorship program, I would physically fly out to where they were and show them what I see in that neighborhood and how I look at it and run the numbers and all of these on all these different assets in a particular neighborhood. So this is when I was still able to do that. So it was really, really fun. And I flew out there and there was this one house that came up, and these are the 4 data points on the house. Now, remember, when we're running the 4 data points, all we're doing is asking a question, right? What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Now, don't get out there like this is the end all be all, because you can mess around and get hurt financially. This is just enough information to determine whether or not we want to move forward with putting in an offer in on a piece of property. Okay. Now, this house was only $10,000. Okay. It's a $10,000 house. So that's data point number 1. Data point number 1 is, what does it cost, or what am I willing to pay? What does it cost if it's for sale? What am I willing to pay if it's off market? We have to determine that number. So data point number 1, $10,000. What does it cost to fix up? $40,000. So data point number 1, what does it cost? 10 grand. What does it cost? Data point number 2, what does it cost to fix up? 40 grand. So we're all in 50 right there. What's it going to be worth when we're done? Data point number 3, what's the ARV, after repair value, after improvement value, whatever you want to call it? 25,000. And this particular one generated $700 a month. Okay. Now, this is why having somebody that you can run all your stuff past is important. Now, if I ask an average investor, would you pay $50,000 for something that's only going to be worth $25,000 when you finish? Most of them will say no. Actually, we use this example in our virtual classes. I use this example. I say, all right, who says that's a good deal? Who says that's a bad deal? Half the people say it's a bad deal. The other half say it's a good deal, but I think they just think it's a trick question. So we go back and forth. Now, yes, that is true. You would be paying $50,000, 40 for the rehab, 10 for the purchase. You would be paying $50,000 for something that's only going to be worth $25,000 when you finish. I understand that. Okay. Also, this tells me you're not going to be able to get financing. No bank is going to finance something that's going to be worth half of the money that you put into it. So this has to be all cash. That's something else that it tells me. But it also tells me that $700 a month is $8,400 a year. Now you're going to put in $50,000 to make $8,400 a year. So, okay, well, what's that return? So what's 8,400 divided by 50,000? 16.8%. And that's just the first year because it's all cash, right? And then, year over year, the return is higher, obviously, because you don't own anything. There's no more debt on the property. So that is a 16.8% return on $50,000. So is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal? No, this just shows me what it is. It's just a deal. Now, is this in my buy box? I don't know. It depends on what type of investor I am at that time. Sometimes I need to get all my money back out of the deal. Sometimes I need to park some money in the deal. So if I park some money somewhere, it needs to be getting a good enough return because I'm not going to leave it in the bank. So Chase can take my $50,000 and then lend it back to me at 25% on a credit card. All right. So maybe I'll park it. All right. But if you don't ask the right questions, you don't always know whether it's a good deal or not. Let's say you have $50,000 in a self-directed IRA, and that self-directed IRA is getting 8%, and you have the ability to get this deal. Well, your self-directed IRA is only getting 8%. This deal's given 16.8% the first year, and it goes up significantly because there's no debt on the property. This is a great deal for somebody like that. Now, somebody like myself that can turn $50,000 into $500,000 really, really quick, the opportunity costs may be too high for me to take this deal. And the opportunity cost is the opportunity you forego for deploying capital into one particular situation, or time and resources, depending on who you're talking to. For me, the opportunity cost would be too high, because 16.8% return on $50,000 is not enough for me. Right? I'm not saying it's not enough. It's not enough for me at this particular moment in time. But if you're not asking the right questions, you don't always understand whether this is going to be a good deal for you or not. And if you don't have the background, you don't know what surrounding questions to ask, like around financing, around, if you're doing a major rehab, around code violations and requirements and all of those things. So 4 data points, it's just 4 questions. Then we build education on top of that. If you can't master those 4 questions, we don't move forward, because I'm not 100% sure that you can protect yourself. All right. Now, let me get I need a volunteer. And since Clubhouse, you guys are right in front of my face, I need a volunteer. Actually, there's somebody in our real estate family. Jeremiah, come on up here, man. Don't be shy. Unless you're in the waiting room at like Planned Parenthood or something, don't. Just put it in the chat that you're not available. All right, Steven, Jeremiah, too slow on the trigger. Come on, brother. Somebody come up here. Somebody raise your hand, or I'll just go off and pull somebody. There's Jeremiah. What took you so long, man? There he is. All right. Jeremiah, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Did we run these on that duplex you got, or I think we did, but I don't remember.
Run what?
The 4 data
four
points.
data points?
I know you did, but did we do it together?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I believe so.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's make a fictional property, right? 123 Main Street. And Jeremiah, you gotta, what does it cost, Jeremiah? I'm gonna write down 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is it? Just pick a number out of the air.
You want the duplex numbers? Or,
no, just a random, just pick a price. Not your property, just pick a random sales price.
You want a cheap one?
Not anyone, just pick a number.
35. Go 35.
35,000?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What does it cost to fix up? Just throw out a rehab number.
30.
30. What's it going to be worth when we're done? What are similar houses in better shape in the area selling for?
140.
Okay, 140. And let's say it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. How much would it rent out for a month?
$1,200.
1,200. All right. I could already say that's a good deal right there, but let's go ahead and work it. All right. Let's go ahead and work it. All right. Let's go. So what does it cost? 35,000. What does it cost to fix up? 30,000. What's it going to be worth when we're done? 140. It generates $1,200 a month. I like these low amounts because I'm from the Bay Area, California. You can walk in my neighborhood with $1 million cash and still can't afford to buy no place to live. I like these little $30,000 shots. I could do those all day. All right. So the first thing that this tells me is the property is going to be worth 140. So my eyes automatically look at, okay, I can see I'm going to be all in 65, 35 for the purchase and 30 for the rehab. And then 140, I got to calculate 80% of that, because if I do a cash out refinance, it's going to be for 80% of that value. And I got to make sure that 80% is enough for me to get all of my money back out of this deal while paying off all of the existing debt. Now, it doesn't matter whether we pay it in cash or whether we borrow it. We want to get it back. So we're going to be all in 65,000. So the first thing I'm going to do is take an ARV of 140,000 times 0.80. That puts me at $112,000 mortgage. I can tell that's a good deal already, right? That's $112,000 mortgage. Now, I've been doing this long enough to know that The $1,200 a month in rental income it brings in is going to be enough to cover that. $140,000, 80% of that is going to be 112,000. So I'm going to be all in 65. So 112,000 minus 65,000 equals 47,000 bucks. That means once I buy this property, once I fix it up, once I put a tenant in there, and then I do a cash out refinance at 80%, after I pay back all the existing debt, that's 65,000, I'm going to have 47,000 in my pocket and tax free, right? Now, points and fees, right? You got points and all the closing costs and all that stuff. So let's say I'm going to have 37,000 tax free. Let's say 35,000, right? That's a pretty good situation. As long as this $1,200 a month in rental income is enough to sustain that $112,000 mortgage. Now let's see. I'm going to put 112. This is just a regular payment calculator. There's a million of them. They all do the same thing. That $112,000 mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is probably going to cost me about $990. All right. So let's call it $1,000. So $35,000 in my pocket and it cash flows $200 a month. I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of investors are not going to get excited about that cash flow because it only cash flows $200 a month. So you got to replace one water heater. Guess what? You're upside down. You have any 1 month vacancy loss, you're upside down. But it doesn't tell you whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. It just shows you what the deal is. And you have to determine, is it a good deal or a bad deal for you? Thank you on TikTok for that one person that shared the room. We really appreciate that. All right. So you got to determine whether that one deal is good enough for you. And in this case, that might be good enough for me. True, I'm only making $200 a month on the cash flow, but I got $35,000 out of the cash out refinance. So as long as this property is paying for itself, I can deploy that capital into another project, right? As a down payment. $35,000, that's a down payment on something, right? Now, me as a real estate investor, somebody that has a real estate investing business, I wouldn't just put that $35,000 back into another real estate asset. I would probably put it into marketing into my business so I can generate more conversations, get more people into my CRM and database so that I can generate conversations where I don't need the capital up front to be able to acquire the real estate. All right. Everybody shows you how I can show you guys, the mechanics of doing that. Matter of fact, we'll get into that in a second. So if you guys are on TikTok, if we get up to, let me see, we're on a couple. If we get up to, let's say 10 shares on TikTok, then I'll show you what it looks like to buy a piece of property without needing the down payment and all that stuff up front. So if we can get up to 10 shares on TikTok, then I'll go ahead and hook y'all up with this. This is something that I've went over on our workshops, and this is something that I went over, not just virtual workshops, but in person and on some of these live platforms. So I will teach you guys what it means to buy real estate with zero capital up front. I need you guys to do something for me, though. I need you guys to get me up to 10 shares on TikTok. And Clubhouse, I'm not really looking at too much, but I'm going to put my TikTok thing up there. Hold on. So I'm going to type my tip top. You know you old when you can't even say it no more. I'm going to put my talk tick up here. All right, what is it? What is my TikTok? Shoot. Can somebody tell me what my okay, I think it's at 4 data points. At 4 data points, I believe. There it is. So I put it in the chat. So if you guys join me on TikTok, if we can get up to 10 shares, then I'm going to go ahead and then I'll teach you guys how to buy the real estate with no money out of pocket. So while we're working on that, anybody got any questions on any platform? What up, James? See you over there, brother. All right. What are we up to? 8 shares? All right, we up to 8 shares. We get 2 more shares, and then I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna teach you guys how we do that. And then I may have another incentive for you guys. All right. Where's my music, man? I need more. Hate that I can't do music because they hit me with the copyright. Where are we at? 8 shares on TikTok. If we get 2 more shares, then I'll teach you guys what it means to buy real estate with zero money up front. And then we're going to spend. Okay, that was quick. All right, so let's do it. Now, when we're buying real estate, we are always going to run the 4 data points. Okay. And I'm going to use one of the ones that we already did. And all right, let me see. The 30, 30, 100. Yeah, we'll do that one. Okay. So there are 4 components, and you folks in our real estate family, this should be sounding real familiar to you. There are 4 components to acquiring real estate with no capital up front. Now, before we get into this, please understand that just because you can acquire the capital up front or the real estate up front with no capital does not mean it's a good investment. Okay. It does not mean it's a good investment. It also does not mean that it's free. Nobody is giving away free real estate, right? With few exceptions. There's always a catch. Typically the free real estate, hey, this city's giving out, selling properties from the land bank for $1. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I wonder why all the institutional investors don't just come in and buy them all up. There's a reason for that stuff. All right. 4 components. The first component is you got to be able to determine whether the deal is worth buying in the first place. I will say this. You will either pay for some real estate investing education, or you will pay as a result of not having it. Now, paying as a result of not having it, maybe it may not be that much. Maybe you can figure it out and maybe bump your head here and there and you'll get it. But I'm telling you, there's a reason why people come and want to sign up with what we're doing. And I've been teaching this stuff for free online for like 4 years. All right. Now, the first component, assess the deal. You got to be able to master the 4 data points. 90% of you guys watching me right now or have the, or can hear my voice. You guys already have that guide. I did that guide 4 years ago. I was giving it out to everybody that was even interested in getting into real estate investing. I also have it revised, so I updated it. If you want it, reach out to me. You guys know how to find me. Reach out to me. If you can hear my voice, that means you can find me. It's data point number 1. Assess the deal using the 4 data points. Not data point. Component number 1. Component number 2. Now I'm explaining how we're acquiring real estate with zero capital up front. Component number 2. You got to get your name on that deed before you pay for it. Period. That's it. Now, where people have the most difficulty with that is, how am I get my name on the deed before I have to pay for it? If somebody puts me on the deed, that is my house. I can just walk away, and then no one's going to trust me to be able to do that. Nope. You got to be able to understand what seller financing is. Now, seller financing is not always long-term. Sometimes it's just 90 days. Sometimes it's just 120 days. Sometimes it's 60 days. But there's a seller financing component. And what a seller financing component means is all you're doing is taking what you owe and putting it in the form of debt. Okay? Taking what you owe and putting it in the form of debt. Now, for sake of this conversation, we are going to say that, let me see. Yeah. We're going to take that example of the 4 data points with a $30,000 house that had the $30,000 rehab. It's going to be worth $100,000 and it generates $1,000 a month. So those are the 4 data points. So we need to go into a seller financing situation for the $30,000. Okay. Now, again, 4 components of structuring the deal creatively and doing it this way. You got to be able to assess a deal. Assessing it, just ask these 4 questions. What is the cost? What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? The second component is get your name on the deed before you have to pay for it. Well, no one knows you from squat and no one's going to trust you to sign their house over to you. So you have to be able to protect them with the appropriate documentation. That means if I'm buying that house for $30,000, I need to put that $30,000 in the form of debt. What document reflects the debt? Promissory note. All right. Now, what document enforces the promissory note and gives the seller the power to take the property back if you default on the note? Security instrument. 2 documents. Closing company can put them together for you. Okay. Think of it this way. The note is evidence of the debt. The security instrument is what happens when you don't pay it. So all those folks you see getting foreclosed on in pre-foreclosure and ultimately getting foreclosed on, the security instrument was invoked and it gave the lender the power to foreclose on the property. So you want to offer that same protection to the seller. Otherwise, why would they trust you? Well, they wouldn't trust you. All right. So, recap: when you're acquiring real estate for zero capital up front, you first have to determine whether it's worth it to do so. How do you do that? 4 data points. What does it cost? Or what am I willing to pay? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? 4 questions. I have the guide for you to be able to analyze those 4 questions. Component number 2, you got to be able to get your name on the deed before you pay for it. Another reason for that is there's some rehab costs we got going on here. And I'm not going to borrow money against the property for rehab costs if I don't own the property, if my name's not on the deed. And no one's going to lend me money with the property as security if my name's not on the deed. So that's why we do it that way. So component number 2 is taking everything that we owe, putting it in the form of debt, and attaching it to the property as a lien once that property is deeded over to us. So now I own the property, but I'm in debt. And we can go over the notes of the terms of the note and all that, when I have to pay, what interest rates and all that. That's up to you. Okay. Now, the third component, you got to be able to make it worth more than you bought it for. You have to be able to make it worth more than you bought it for. Because when you get to the fourth component, which is your exit, those proceeds from that exit, whether it's a sale or a refinance, needs to be enough to pay off what you agreed to buy the property for. Okay. So 4 components. Assess the deal with the 4 data points. Get your name on the deed before you have to pay for it. That means you have to invoke a promissory note and a security instrument. Have it registered with the county. That creates a lien for the amount that you owe. But now that the property is officially yours, you can borrow money to fix it up. Now that money can be tied to the real estate or not, right? But just know, out of your exit, you're going to pay that back too. So the goal is for you to be left with a cash flowing asset that you acquired with zero capital up front. You improved the value, made it worth more than you bought it for, leveraged that value, and paid off all your debt, including what you owe the seller, out of your exit strategy. That's how we do that. Okay. That's how we do it. Now, again, people selling that as a course or whatever, exercise caution. That is perfectly okay to take a course on how to do that. I'm telling you right now, it's not all it's cracked up to be, right? Those situations aren't just falling from the sky. For one, you've got to be well versed enough to be able to articulate that to somebody that is not a real estate investor. You've got to be able to articulate it to somebody that's not a real estate investor. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's some trigger words that as soon as you say, I'm pretty sure that conversation's going to be over. One of them is seller financing. Another trigger word is subject to, right? These people don't know what that is. All they know is it's high risk on their part, right? So why would they do it? And if people aren't well versed enough in it, then the answer is typically going to be no. All right. Now, you can use that process for as much as you want. I have some of you guys have heard the 10-unit apartment building, right? How do we do apartment buildings that way? How do you acquire an apartment building with no capital up front? Now, I always teach the strategy and then I manage expectations. That does not mean you can have no money getting into real estate investing. As a matter of fact, don't let these strategies give you a false sense of confidence, because I want to go over all the bad stuff too, right? This is why trying to piece part this information and go out there and execute without a mentor can get dangerous. So I'm gonna go over all that stuff too. All right. Now, put a 1 in the chat if you want me to do it again on a residential property. Put a 2 in the chat if you want me to do it. Now I'm just talking to folks on Clubhouse, TikTok. Put a 2 in the chat if you want me to do the apartment building example. Now, how do we do apartment buildings? So 1 for residential, 2 for apartment buildings. Y'all on TikTok, y'all let me know. 1 for residential, 2 for apartment buildings. So wherever you are, we're going to explain how we acquire it with zero capital. Okay, so Jerry says 1 residential. Okay. And I feel like we're going to be doing both. Okay. All right. I think we're going to be doing both. All right. So I'm going to do the residential again, then I'm going to get into the apartment buildings. Now, please, please, please don't get out there and try to execute this stuff on your own. I'm telling you, there is, especially when we get into the apartment buildings, there is so much that can go wrong and sideways, and you constantly have to be looking at everything, right? That's why you don't see me selling courses on here's how you buy houses with no money out of pocket. Because Because it's misleading, folks. It's misleading. These things are just tools you should have in your toolbox. Okay. Now, I need a fictional. We're gonna do it again. Uh, Somebody in the chat. Let's go on Clubhouse. Somebody give me a purchase price in the chat. Purchase price. Just put any purchase price in the chat on Clubhouse. And then while they're doing that, you folks on TikTok, how much is it going to cost me to fix the property up? Just put a random rehab cost. Doesn't matter what it is. All right. All right, Karen, I'm going to go with Karen. Karen says $50,000 for the purchase. So remember, I'm just going to write down 1, 2, 3, 4. Data point number 1, what does it cost? $50,000. Now, TikTok, give me a rehab cost for this property. How much is it going to cost me to fix it up? Just $60K. All right, amigo bro says $60K. All right, now let's go back to Clubhouse. How much is it going to be worth when we're done? Just put a Fernando. Did you say $650 or is that 650,000? All right, how much is it going to be worth when we're done? Simone said, Simone said 250K. I think that was, so I'll use hers. All right, or who is that? Give me one more realistic. All right. So we'll go. Fernando said 650,000. All right, Fernando. All right, let's go. Okay, let's go 180. It's gonna be worth 180,000. How much income can it generate? Somebody put a rental. How much are y'all paying in rent? Somebody just put whatever you paying in rent or what the rental rates in your city are for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I'll just pick the first one that comes up. TikTok or Clubhouse. What's the rental amount? How much income can this property bring in? All right, Mo Cheese says 1,500. All right, so that's where we are. He got Simone. Okay, I heard that. Go ahead, Simone. Simone, where you from? What city you from, Simone? Robert's on Clubhouse. All right, 15. We're gonna go 1,500. Atlanta. Okay, all right. Saturated. My last 5 deals were in Atlanta. I ain't even from there. All right. Okay, so here we go. Now we got to buy. Somebody calls me and say, Otis, hey, what's up, man? This is Skeeter Jones. I got this deal for you. It's usually a wholesaler, right? And check it out. I'll take my assignment fee on the exit, but this owner's willing to. She wants to sell her finance. She's willing to let you do all that. I said, okay, all right. So let's look at it. First of all, we run the 4 data points before we do anything, folks. And I'm telling you, I don't care if it's a single family home, a freaking tree house. You like that voice, Simone? It's a tree house or a 2,000 unit development. Now, I know some of you guys, I see some folks that are seeing me for the first time. So I'll give you my background. So I am a full-time real estate investor. I'm the founder of the 4 Data Points Academy, which is the only real estate investing training platform that doesn't have an end date, right? We focus on turning people into real estate investors. We don't care how long it takes. I've also been in the multifamily commercial industry for over 2 decades. I exited a couple of years ago. Now I own multifamily, so I'm not in it on the corporate side, managing these developments or these portfolios. That's what I did. I was overseeing $650 million of multifamily commercial assets. On the non-real estate related side, I took $585 using an outsourcing business model and created a company that went on to generate 7 figures in the short time that I had it. So when we start getting into, and that's not the only time, I've had multiple companies that exceeded the 7-figure mark. I am a licensed real estate broker in California. I'm a licensed real estate broker in Georgia. I'm licensed in life insurance. I'm not in the insurance business. I do not sell life insurance. I have nothing to do with the industry other than holding a license. You never hear me talk about it unless I'm using it to leverage for real estate. And so I can speak intelligently about it. I did get licensed in it. I've been exposed to real estate since I was 3 years old, going to real estate meetings with my father. I've consulted on multiple projects, domestic and abroad. Some of my students were kind enough to position me into a meeting with the vice president of Gambia, or what they call the Minister of Interior, to talk about some development projects as well as look at some projects in the country of Senegal. I've sat in meetings with mayors, city council, land banks for multiple municipalities here in the States. So I say all that to say, if I say something, I have a reason for saying it. And it's not just it's not just a hobby that I picked up in the lobby, baby. I'm sorry. It's my pimp voice. I don't know where I do that. It just surfaces sometimes. Okay. Now, 4 components of being able to purchase property out of your exit strategy. Okay. 4 components. Then we're going to get into doing this for the apartment building. Now, We agree the property is $50,000. That's data point number one. What does it cost? We agreed that it costs $60,000 to fix up. We agreed that it's going to be worth $180,000 when we finish, and it's going to generate $1,500 a month. Okay. Now let's explore these 4 data points real quick. Okay. Let me see. I see it costs $150 and another $60 to fix up. That means I'm going to be in $110,000. I want to keep the property. We can't talk about generational wealth and we keep selling everything, right? So I want to keep the property. So I'm going to be all in 110. Property is going to be worth 180,000. I know I can get an $80,000 mortgage or 80% mortgage on that 180. Let me see how much that would be. 180,000, which is my ARV, times 80%. That means I can get a mortgage for $144,000. I'm gonna just write that off to the side because if I do a cash out refinance, that's how much my final mortgage is going to be. Now, is that final mortgage enough to pay off all of the existing debt? Well, it's 50 for the purchase, 60 for the rehab, minus 110,000. So 60 plus 50 is 110,000. So I'm gonna take that away from the $144,000 mortgage. That means I'm gonna be left with $34,000. That's tax-free because it's a refinance, not a taxable event. $34,000, but you got points and fees and all that stuff that I'm not taking into consideration. So I'll take 10 from that. So that means I'm going to have $24,000 in my pocket after I do that cash out refinance and pay off all the existing debt. And that's going to be my long-term mortgage, right? My mortgage on my exit. Now, this is going to generate $1,500 a month in rental income. So now let me go back to that mortgage. Let me see. How much is $144,000 going to cost me a month? We're just analyzing component number 1, 4 data points. So I want to put 144,000. I'm going to put at 7.75%. It's going to cost me about $1,241 a month. So let's say let's round it $1,250. So I'm going to cash flow $250 a month. All right. So I can look at those 4 data points. I see right now I'm going to cash flow $250 a month, which most investors will tell you that's nothing to get excited about. But I also get $34,000 out of this cash out refinance. And once I subtract all the fees and stuff, that's still $24,000. Now, this process will probably take about 120 days. Now, so you have to determine, now remember, we're only on component number 1. You've got to determine, is $24,000 tax-free and $250 a month in perpetuity, is that good enough for you to move forward with this? It's not always good deal, bad deal. Sometimes it's just deal. This is what it is. Is it worth your time? Some people will say yes. Some people will say, no, it's not. It depends on what you have going on. So for somebody that knows how to do this while working a full-time job, and because we teach people how to do that, how to invest from 2,500 miles away, we teach people everything, right? And sometimes you can't fly out there every weekend. It's just not feasible, right? So if you know how to invest from a distance and you can still maintain your current living situation, absolutely, your current job situation, absolutely, this may be a good deal. But if you're somebody that is constantly investing and you know that opportunity, there's more opportunity elsewhere, better opportunities, this may not be worth it for you, okay? So I say all that to say, it's going to be different for everybody. Now, we're going to buy this deal with no money up front. We just did the first component, which is run the 4 data points to see if it's worth buying in the first place. And we did. And by the way, folks, the more you run these 4 data points, the easier it becomes. You start doing this stuff in your head, right? What component number 2? Component number 2, when structuring deals creatively, get your name on the deed before you have to pay. Get your name on the deed before you have to pay for it. That is a magic pill. So this property is $50,000. So how do we get our name on that deed? We say, all right, Mr. Seller, I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and buy this property from you for $50,000. Now I've got some other projects going on. I got to move some money around. So let's do this. Go ahead and deed me the property. You don't have to deed it to me directly. We can go through escrow or a closing company. And then what we're going to do is for that amount, just so we can keep everybody honest, my $50,000 debt to you is going to be in the form of a promissory note. And so you don't have to take me back to court to get it. We're going to incorporate a security instrument, which allows you to foreclose if I default on the note. Now, I can articulate that in a way that's a little easier to receive, but that's the conversation. So when we walk away from that closing table, I now own the property for $50,000. But the seller of the property now has a debt in their favor on that property that's registered with the county in the form of a lien. So no matter what happens, if I default on the note, and we can agree on the terms of the note, if I default on that note, they can foreclose the property. So if they deed it over to me and I run off to Mexico, never to be seen, they can just get the property back. Okay. That's why it's called a security instrument, right? It enforces the note. So that's component number 2. So now I own the property and I may have to start making payments on it, but I usually don't have my first payment start within the first 90 days or 120 days. Why? Because I'm going to exit and I'm going to give them all their money before that first payment ever takes place. So why would I schedule a payment at all if I'm going to do that? Because I'll entice them with a high payment. You can entice them with a high payment. For example, hey, Mr. Smith, look, let's make the first payment not due within 120 days. Every payment after that, $10,000 a month. Well, shoot, I'll take $10,000. $10,000 a month, and if you don't pay me, I can foreclose? Absolutely, I'll do that. But it doesn't matter if I make it $10,000 a month. Doesn't matter if I make it $15,000, $20,000 a month. This person's getting all their money before the first payment is ever going to be due. Okay. So component number 1, we assessed the 4 data points, decided to move forward. Component number 2, we had the property deeded over to us, and in return, we set up a seller finance situation for about 120 days, right, in favor of the seller. And that debt is going to be attached to the property. So if I default, they can take it back. Component number 3, we got to make the property worth more than we bought it for. Well, we know we can do that because when we were running the 4 data points, we saw that data point number 3 said, hold on a second. Okay. We know we can do that because we saw in the beginning, data point number 3 said this property is going to be worth $180,000 when we finish. And then we did the math there, saw how much we can do on a cash out refinance and so on and so forth, right? So component number 3 is add value. You got to make it worth more than you bought it for. But how much is it going to cost me to make it worth more than I bought it for? Well, we ran the 4 data points. Data point number 2, what does it cost to fix up? We saw it's going to be $60,000. That's fine. I own the property now. I can go borrow $60,000 against the property. I don't even care if they put a lien on the property. I can go to friends to give me $60,000 on a property, or circle of influence. I can go to lendingclub.com or Best Egg or whatever. I can go to a mortgage lender I can get that money. Okay. So now I borrow the money to fix it up. Now the clock is ticking, right? I'm all in 110. Right. Now that the property is fixed up, I can go ahead and put a tenant in there. And now we consider the property stabilized. Once you have a tenant in there, the property stabilized, and the property is getting $1,500 a month. Now I just go to my lender like we had planned to do in the first place and say, hey, Mr. Lender, this is the situation. I got this property. I got $110,000 worth of debt on it. I got a tenant in there. It's making $1,500 a month. Property is worth $180,000. I need to borrow 80% of that to pay off all this existing debt. They say, all right, cool. Cash out refinance for how much? $144,000. $144,000 minus the $110 I spent on the property puts me at $34,000. Add closing costs and all that stuff, take off another 10, puts me at $24,000. So now I got a tenant in there. I got a permanent mortgage, $144,000 mortgage that costs me $1,250 a month. So I'm making $250 on the cash flow, which isn't life changing. But I got $24,000 tax free. What do you think I'm gonna do with that? I'm gonna put it back in my business, or I'm going to put it down towards another cash flowing asset. Are you buying each property under an LLC? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends. I say talk to a qualified professional. Most of my properties you'll find in a land trust, and then the beneficiary of that land trust will be one of my LLCs, and then the managing member of that LLC is another LLC. Typically, LLCs aren't always the best way to go. So talk to a qualified professional. And we've got people that I can refer you to that actually know their stuff, right? So it may be best for you, may be best for one situation, not best for another situation. I have multiple consultants that I will look to when we talk about legal structure and all that. Any property that I buy in my personal name is getting transferred to a land trust, period. Right? We don't want to trigger any due on sale clauses. So trusts are exempt from triggering the due on sale clause. To anybody that's familiar with the Garnt St. Germain, what is it? Garnt St. Germain Act of 1982 or 84 or something like that. Anyway, So yeah, so I don't always use LLCs. Sometimes talk to a qualified professional because it's not always just okay. Well, what should I use to buy real estate? They have to look at your overall financial situation to see which way is the best way forward. I'm not married to any one particular legal structure. I let the consultants tell me what I want to achieve based on my situation, or I tell them what I want to achieve, and then they tell me what the best way to get it is. But if you don't know what to do when you are talking to qualified professionals, tell them you want three things. Then I'm gonna get into what are we at? We're on TikTok. We're at 18 shares. If we get to 25 shares on TikTok, I'll teach you how to buy an apartment building with zero capital up front. Um, if you don't know what to ask a qualified professional when you are talking about these things, tell them you want to accomplish three things: tax favor, liability protection, and anonymity. Anonymity is a big one for me. Anonymity. You don't want anybody knowing what you owe or own or owe. So yeah, definitely anonymity. All right, we are at, dang, did I say 25 shares? I should have said 30. Y'all quick. Y'all on it, right? Well, thank you very much. Now let's get into the apartment buildings. And again, I hope I'm not sensationalizing this stuff for you guys. There are a lot of drawbacks that you have to deal with potentially when you're doing this stuff. And I will also go on to say the more creative you have to get with the deal, the less likely it is to work. The more creative you have to get with a deal, the less likely it is to work. Now, I got a couple promises I'll make to you guys. I got a couple promises I'm going to make to you guys. The water, okay, all right. I'll deal with, what is this? Hold on, folks. Thank you. The address is 228 Westchester. The water company can't find it. Okay. 226. Okay. All right. Some tenants moving in. All right. I'm gonna make some promises to you guys. All right. Can I do that? I'm gonna make some promises. Here's my promise. If you decide that you want to join our real estate family, we will train you for as long as it takes for you to be a seasoned real estate investor. And you determine when you no longer need us. Period. For as long as it takes. You don't have to keep paying. There's no subscription. You don't have to pay monthly for as long as it takes. Whether that's 6 months, it ain't gonna be 6 months, or 6 years. For as long as we exist, we will continue to train you until you are a seasoned real estate investor. I don't care if you start out in residential and then later you scale up into apartment buildings and then you get off into maybe buying and selling debt, or maybe you want to get vertically integrated and start a company on top of your real estate investing company. We will train you the entire way. Okay. The other promise is this: anytime I teach a particular strategy, I will teach you the dark side of that strategy, because that's where most people get caught. Okay. You jump into these rooms. You got somebody, teaching you how to buy a house with no money out of your own pocket, and then they want to sell you something. But they don't tell you that just because something is possible does not mean it's likely. Okay. If you guys want to know about our program, not mine, but I've got other people working with me too. So I'd like to say I'm everybody in it, but we've got some more people working with it. You can go to, everybody get a pen because this is going to be important. And then I'm going to get into this apartment building. I'm going to say this one time. I know you guys can see it above my head on TikTok, but you guys that can't, get a pen. I'm assuming you got a pen. Just go to meetotis.com, meetodis.com. All of my information is right there. You guys want to know about what real estate investing mentorship is supposed to look like? There you go. Okay. All right. I want to get into the apartment buildings. I don't want to make this one big sales pitch. You guys already know what it is. Some of y'all been following me for years. So, all right. Shout out to all of my real estate family that got some wins this last month too, man. We've got, I think our number one student is just hit 30 doors. And the goal is for all these folks will be doing better than me eventually. That's my goal for everybody. All right. Now we're going to get into the apartment building how we pay out of our exit strategy for that. Notice I didn't say that the building is free. I said we pay out of our exit strategy. Nothing's free. All right, let me see if I can find my notes because I got all the math worked out. It'll go a lot faster. I use the same 10-unit apartment building every time. All right. All right. I wish I could put some music on for y'all. Hold on one second. Let me go get it. Got to log into our student portal and pull it down. All right. What's up, Rose? I see you over there on TikTok. Y'all gonna learn something today, huh? See, y'all was about to buy a course on how to buy real estate with no money up front. That stuff is so misleading. It's so misleading. Just tell people the truth. All right. Media. Here we go. All right. So we're going to get into how to buy an apartment building with no money out of pocket. Now, for sake of this conversation, do I have it? Where is that? Okay. All right. Hold on. Okay. I got to dig. That's how black people start getting nervous. Their voice start getting high pitched. Do I got it? Okay. 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 1 second. Let me get it here real quick. All right. I didn't plan on doing this, so it's taking me a second to pull it up. All right. For sake of this conversation, this property is going to be a 10-unit apartment building. And in this 10-unit apartment building, there are going to be 6 units that are occupied at $500 a month. Now, the thing about teaching this to folks that aren't familiar with multifamily commercial investing is so that you understand everything that's going on. I got to teach you stuff along the way. And you may not have time to absorb all of it. So you're just going to have to trust me. It is what it is. Okay. And then you can go and research on your own. Okay. Now, 10-unit apartment building. Remember, we got to run the 4 data points first. So I'm going to, let me get some more scratch paper. So I'm going to run the 4 data points, but you're not going to realize I'm doing it until I come to my conclusion on what's going on with this property. Okay. 10-unit apartment building, 6 units are occupied. If 6 are occupied, that means 4 are what? Vacant. Now, the market rent is $700 a unit. Market rent is what that unit rents for on the open market. But it's vacant because they need to be fixed up. Now, in this case, I can probably fix these units up for about $8,000 a piece, and there's 4 of them. So I already know I'm going to need $32,000. Okay, I'll probably note that. All right. The $500 per month times 6 is $3,000 per month, which is $36,000 a year gross rental income. All right. Now, there's no mortgage on this property. And if those other 4 were leased and in better shape, I could get $700 a month for them. But I don't have the money to do it. So they're going to stay vacant for right now. All right. Now, in this neighborhood, the cap rate, or in this area, the cap rate is 6.5%. Well, what's a cap rate? The cap rate is the relationship between the net operating income of a building and its market value. And we assume the market value to be what it's sold for. How do you do this as a first-time home buyer? Would I have to live in it? Felicia, reach out to me because I've reach out to me. I can explain that to you, but I don't want to forget your question. By the way, all of these real estate investing strategies, you could just move into one after you can just move into one eventually. So for first-time home buyers and all that, I get that question a lot. So that's a good question. Did I read it out loud? How do you do this as a first-time home buyer? Would I have to live in it? So yeah, we'll get into that. Somebody remind me of that question if I forget. All right. Now, the cap rate is the relationship between a building's net operating income and its market value. And for this building, I'm going to say that we're going to allocate 20% expenses for repairs and maintenance and all the other stuff. Now, before y'all run to Bigger Pockets and all these other platforms that tell you should assume 35 to 45%, sometimes I do. I don't have time to get into why I don't right now, but just understand when I'm talking about multifamily commercial, I was overseeing $650 million in multifamily commercial assets and had to do $80 million annual budgets and account for every piece of income and every expense within that $80 million repeatedly for multiple properties. So when I say it is, this is what it is, this is what it is. All right. Now, recap. 10-unit apartment building, 6 occupied at $500 a month, 4 are vacant. Market rent is $700 a month. There's no mortgage. The neighborhood cap rate is 6.5%. Expenses are 20% of gross. Okay. Now, when you guys come into our real estate family, that stuff can be overwhelming. I teach you all that stuff. This stuff will be, it's like you'll be doing this stuff in your sleep. All right. All right. Now, what documents are we going to utilize? Because we got to know what these documents do. So for this scenario, we're going to use a purchase agreement, right? Which is just how we make an offer. A note, right? We're not going to pay for it right away. So there's got to be a note in there, but there's got to be a promise to pay because no one's going to deed a property over to us if our documentation isn't where it needs to be. A deed is just a transfer document. It's used when you transfer real estate from one to another. And a security instrument. Security instrument is the last document now there's other documents that we use. These are the main 4. Security instrument gives the lender the power to foreclose. Okay. So now, step 1, those are the details. So step 1, we have to determine the value by calculating the NOI times the net operating income. I'm sorry, the NOI, which is net operating income, divided by the cap rate. Now, I'm sorry, man, I've only done this 1,200 times. Is your entry cap rate that you look for that low always? No, I don't always. So it's whatever the cap rate is in the neighborhood is what we use for our subject property. So the context with cap rate can be used multiple ways. For example, in that area, the going cap rate may be 6.5%. But when I acquire the property, I may be running it at a 10% cap rate, which means I'm going to increase the net operating income. So no, I don't. It is what it is. Just when I discover it, and I use the area cap rate to determine how much our subject property is worth. All right. So I got to do the math. Net operating income divided by cap rate equals value. So what's our net operating income? Well, $3,000 a month times 12 months is $36,000. Back out 20% for expenses. That puts us at $28,800. So let's do that math. 28,800 divided by 0.065, which is a cap, puts us at $443,077. Great. We've got our first number. All right. Why do we do that? Because multifamily commercial is valued based on the income that they generate, primarily based on the net operating income, right? Now, all of this stuff can be manipulated. So when we do our due diligence, we get into the weeds. That is a whole nother phase. Now we're just determining how we structure this situation so that we don't have to have any capital coming up front. All right. So I go to Mr. and Mrs. Smith and offer to purchase it for $443,077, which is the worth based on their financials. Now, I got to offer them some incentive. What's up, Noah? Good to see you, brother. I got to offer them some incentive because why would they sell it to me? If they just wanted to sell it for what it was worth, they could just sell it on the open market. So I'm going to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, look, I want to buy your property for what it's worth, $443,77. That can't be disputed. That's based on your financials. But I've got a lot of transactions going on at one time, and I'm going to move them. I have to move my money here and there. So I'll tell you what, it may delay closing for 60, maybe even 90 days. But I'll tell you what, I'll throw in another $20,000 for your trouble. So in their mind, well, shoot, it's worth $443,000. He's going to give me another $20,000 for a delay. All right, we're in. Now, I always include one of the vendors, right? I always say, hey, look, I'm walking around the property and I see a vendor there, let's say a landscaper, and I say, hey, what does it cost to do some, just some quick curb appeal stuff, not major, maybe a quick power wash. The guy says $2,500. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $5,000 and have you stay on as my landscaper because I'm buying this building. But you got to give me a net 120. I can't pay you for probably 90 to 120 days. They'll typically agree, right? Now, it didn't have to be give them nothing. Maybe I can say, here's $500 out of my petty cash or whatever. But let's assume I give them nothing, right? But it comes at a cost. I got to give him double what he normally makes. And then I'm going to go into contract with him so he can be the landscaper going forward. All right. Now, this is where we are. Step 3. Now, remember, step 1, we had to determine the value by calculating the net operating income divided by the cap rate. Step 2, we negotiated. We offered to buy the property for what it's worth and add a $20,000 incentive because there's going to be some delay, right? Step 3, we included the vendors, right? We included the vendors for some curb appeal stuff because we didn't have any money. So we talked to the vendor, the landscaper, told him we'd pay him double if he just wait a little bit, and then we keep him on in perpetuity. And then next, guess what? Y'all know I don't have any money. And how am I going to fix up them 4 units? Remember them 4 units that were vacant? We know the market rent is $700 a month. If I just had the money to fix those units up, I could get $700 a month for those units. So I'm gonna go over to lendingclub.com. I don't have an affiliation with them. I've just used them in the years, past. I'm pretty sure they're still around doing the same thing. Or Best Egg. There's a million of them. Consumer lending sites. I know I need $32,000, but I know lendingclub.com is not going to give me no 120-day grace period to pay. They like JG Wentworth. They need their cash now. Just like me, I can respect that. So instead of borrowing $32,000 to fix the property up, I'm gonna borrow $34,000, and I'm gonna take that $32,000 to fix the property up, and with the $2,000 I have left over, I'm gonna start making payments on it until I can exit. All right, be responsible with debt, folks. All right, so now let's tally up what we owe so far. We owe the seller for what the building cost, $443,077. We owe them an incentive of $20,000. We owe the landscaper $5,000, and we owe lendingclub.com or whatever consumer site we use $34,000. So we are on the hook for $502,077, and I got to start making that first payment to Lending Club in 30 days. Okay. Now, the property has already been deeded over to me. For the amount that I owe the owners, we've already incorporated a note and a security instrument. We went ahead and put that debt. We attached it to the property. So if you look it up in public records, you're going to see the owners or their entity as the lender on that property. And now I just got to pay them. Now, I'll typically take 120 days, but you can negotiate that. You can say 6 months. You can say 90 days, whatever it is. The multifamily, the value add on the multifamily commercial is typically quicker if there's already tenants there because you're just rehabbing units. So it doesn't take as much. All right. Step 4, rehab the units. Right. I'm all in for over $500,000. I got to rehab the units with the money I borrowed from lendingclub.com. Then I got to get them leased. All right. I got to get them leased at $700 per unit. By the way, anybody that owns real estate that is looking to get their property leased, understand the 4 Ps: product, person, promotion, and price. Is the product show ready? Is it being promoted on all the correct platforms? And is the person responsible for getting it leased doing their job? Are they following up and reaching out to people and making contact and all those things? Those are the 4 Ps. We teach those in our program. It's called Landlord Launchpad. All my students have the guide, and I coach them through implementing all those policies and all that other stuff. All right. So step 4, now I can rehab the units with that money I borrowed from lendingclub.com. And after I get them leased, guess what I'm going to do? Math, right? Now I got it stabilized. I got the original 6 units getting $500 a month. I've got the 4 vacant units that are now occupied getting $700 a month. They're getting a little more because I fixed them up a little nicer. Those 6 units were already existing when I bought the place. All right. Now I just do the math. So now I got to calculate the value. $3,000 is what it was already making. But now with those 4 units leased, I'm getting another $2,800 a month. So do the same math. $5,800 a month times 12 months, $69,600. Back out 20% for expenses. My net operating income is $55,680. You use the same cap rate to determine your value. We use 6.5%. We'll stick with that. $55,680 divided by 0.065 is $856,615. What do we always do when we add value? Well, we can do one of 2 things. We can keep it or sell it. I'll keep it if it generates enough income to service the debt on the cash out refinance. If it won't, then I'll sell it, roll it into another cash flowing property. All right. So let's keep going. Our current building value is $856,615. I can get an 80% mortgage, which is $685,292. I owe $502,077. Now, for those that are familiar with multifamily commercial investing, you already know that this is a good situation. I just got a mortgage for $685,000 and change. I owe $502,000 and some change. So that means when I pay off all of that existing debt, how much do I have left over? $183,215. And on my cash out refinance, who's the first person that I paid? The owners, because that debt was attached to the property. I didn't even have to contact them. They just got a check in the mail. $183,215 in 120 days, maybe 5 months, right? Maybe let's say 5 months. I can probably do it in less than 120 days. I can have those units rehabbed in 2 weeks. All right. So $183,215 tax free. It's tax free because I still own the asset. There's no capital gains tax. What do you think I'm gonna do with that 183? Well, now I'm gonna go do another deal where I don't have to do seller financing. But because I understand how to structure these deals creatively, I may not put 183,000 into another property. I may put 30,000 of that into ads and targeted ads for people in the same situation, baby boomers looking to go into retirement. I may do that. I may bring in some consultants. I may start a marketing company with that whose sole purpose is to be my marketing leg to implement strategies to enter me into more of these conversations. I could do all types of stuff with it. Or maybe I'll just go spend it on a Lamborghini and start doing TikTok videos in front of it. No? No one? It seems to be working. Some of y'all done paid for some courses. So, all right, let me stop. Sorry, I get petty every now and then. All right. All right. So let me see. Roll it back into another deal. Absolutely. I roll it back into another deal. All right. Now, this is where this is the part of real estate investing they don't teach you. It requires discipline, but you know what is the determining factor in how successful somebody is in real estate? And by the way, folks, I'm never gonna lie to y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all the truth because I have these conversations all the time. You know what the determining factor is? I can determine how successful somebody's gonna be. How they feel about themselves when they look in the mirror. How they feel about themselves when they look in the mirror. I know. Folks, I was in ministry for 3 years straight, exclusively. I ain't talking about standing in front of no pulpit either. I'm talking about out there and talking to people that nobody wants. I understand all of the baggage that we carry and how that influences our decision-making process and how it fuels these limiting beliefs and all that stuff ties together. When we have workshops in the beginning, I tell people, look, there's 2 keys to being successful, and you guys can overlook them if you want. But I guarantee you, if you are successful as a real estate investor or an entrepreneur without these things, it's not because of them. It's you were successful in spite of them. Those 2 things are giving and forgiving. Giving and forgiving. If you carry that grudge, and I'm a professional grudge holder, folks. I'm telling you, I'm a professional grudge holder. It feels good to hold a grudge. As a matter of fact, I used to use it to give me that fuel for success, to be successful. What deals did you do in ATO? I've done 5, not just ATL. We're getting ready to exit out of one this month. I did a seller finance deal in Norcross, which is just above Georgia. We did 2 in Duluth, single family home flips. And we have another one going on there right now that we just started. So not the Atlanta metro, but in that Atlanta area. And then we did one in I exited one. Well, maybe my last 4. We're on 5 right now. So, all right, but yeah, your self portrait. So why is that important? Because you are talking to people all of the time when you are talking about buying real estate at a discount. Right. And people have the hardest time articulating what they're trying to do in the real estate investing space. See, I can go on and when people come on with me there, I don't expect them to jump outside of their comfort zone because I know if I tell somebody they need to jump outside of their comfort zone, they're never going to do it. They're never going to do it. Right. And if they have to do that in order for me to be effective, then I'm not a good mentor. So what I do is expand their comfort zone to the point where they don't have to get out of it. Right? Because when you start interacting with folks who you perceive to know more than you in the real estate investing world, your confidence plays a big role. Right? People always say, oh, did you have a lot of confidence? No, it's not that I just naturally have a lot of confidence. I mean, my dad had a lot to do with that. But it's not that like this confidence. I just know all the stuff. So if I go up there and, you could put me in a room with 1,000 people, I can go in there and talk for 8 hours about real estate investing. But put me up there in spelling bee. Yeah, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be a different outcome. Suddenly all the confidence is gone, right? Spell entrepreneur. Um, can you use it in a sentence, please? I'm going to be on that. All right. So take heed to that, folks. When you guys are looking to invest in real estate, not just invest, but get a mentor, take a course. I love courses. I love courses. I don't do courses, right? I can't justify my time doing a course. Now, the course that I have is only for people that are already in our real estate family. It's just a learning tool. So they're already in our real estate family. I'm mentoring them live. We're looking at each other in the eye. But if it's 2 a.m, they want to wake up and they want to, watch some videos on seller finance and maybe take a quiz to test their knowledge, they're going to be able to do that. But that course is not for the general public. Why? Because I don't think that a course is enough to, and I don't think courses are bad. I just don't think they're enough to get you to where you want to be, which is why 40% of the people in our real estate family came from other mentorship programs. We're typically where they end up. Right? A course is not going to get you there. It can improve your knowledge, I'm saying, but if you are going to take a course, you shouldn't be paying more than maybe $100 or $200 for it. Right? Period. You just shouldn't. A lot of that information you guys can just get on the internet. ChatGPT, Gemini, all that stuff. Right? Now, I use ChatGPT and Gemini all the time. It's a tool, right? Organize information. I don't have to type. I could just talk into it. But garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't know what you're talking about going in, or you're just trying to go off something you heard, that's not going to. ChatGPT can't leverage experience, okay? And it can't answer questions that you didn't know to ask. So it has limitations. But if you'll notice a lot of these courses that you're taking, a lot of that information, they're just recycling information, and which is why it shouldn't be more than $100 or $200. So even if they are doing that, it's still worth $100 or $200. So you don't have to go do all the research yourself. All right. Trust me. So we don't do courses. Mentorship is a professional relationship, a long-term professional relationship. And I say long-term in air quotes because it's long-term with us. It's not long-term with everybody else. They're not going to want to take on that liability of having to look you in the face 4 times a week if something's not working. They're out of there, right? So just keep that in mind when you guys are looking into that stuff. So that was the apartment building. Now, we talked about the apartment building, and I'm going to recap the apartment building for those that just came in. The goal was to buy an apartment building using zero capital up front. Okay, we had a 10-unit apartment building, 6 occupied, 4 units vacant. We ended up leasing those 4 units. We fixed them up with money we borrowed from a consumer lending site. There's no mortgage on the property. We allocated 20% for expenses. We utilized a purchase agreement, note, deed, security instrument. Those were the documents we need to be familiar with. We calculated the value by taking the current net operating income and dividing it by the cap rate, came up with $443,077. We put in an offer to buy it for that price, but because we're getting creative with it, and we ran the 4 data points to know what it's going to be worth by the time we were done, we threw on another $20,000 incentive to get them to work with us. We looked at some of the vendors that were working on the property, asked them how much they charge, told them we double it if they give us a net 120. We can pay them in 120 days, and we keep them on in perpetuity under contract. We use a consumer lending site to borrow the money to fix those vacant units up. All right. So that means we were all in for $502,077 before we had to pay for anything. Now, the money we borrowed to fix those units up, we went ahead and borrowed more than we needed so we could start paying that lender back with their own funds until we exit. Now, we rehabbed the units, got them leased at market rent. Once we stabilized the property, now instead of 6 being occupied and 4 vacant, we had 6 occupied at the current $500 and 4 occupied at $700 a month. We did the math, came up with $5,800 a month gross. We did the math. That times 12 is $69,600. Back out 20% for expenses. Our net operating income was $55,680. We did the same math we did to determine the value when we bought it. We were buying it. $55,680. That's the net operating income divided by the cap rate of 6.5% equals $856,615. That's the value that we created. Now, once we create that value, we can get financing against that value. They're not going to finance the entire value, but they'll give us 80%. 80% of that was $685,000 and change. So when we got that final mortgage, what did we do? We paid off all of the existing debt. $502,077, and we walked away with $183,000, $215 tax free, right? Tax free. Now, let's talk about the dark side of that. One, you got to be able to explain that to somebody that is not familiar with real estate investing strategies. Two, you've got to make sure that the cost of any money you borrow, even especially on your exit, on that cash out refinance, the monthly obligation has to be less than the income that the property generates. So this may have been a great deal at 4% interest, maybe not at 8% interest. So you have to look at that, right? You also have to look at things like, you have to understand how to underwrite these deals and understand that there are going to be costs associated with your ownership that wasn't a cost associated with previous ownership, or it was, but not the same rate, like property taxes. You have to understand how property taxes work. It's going to get reassessed based on the current value when it changes hands. So when that property goes from the seller to you, they are going to reassess it. You have to calculate all of that to determine what your cash flow situation is going to look like. Also understand cap rates can be manipulated. I explained a cap rate is the relationship between a building's net operating income and the income that it generates, or net operating income and its market value. Sorry, that's a cap rate. So if a building had a net operating income of $30,000, it sold for $300,000. We consider that the market value. $30,000 divided by $300,000 is 10%. 10% cap. That can be manipulated. Cash flow cannot be manipulated if you do the proper due diligence. Cap rates and net operating incomes can. Net operating income can be manipulated by things like deferred maintenance. So if they've been deferring maintenance, for example, let's say that they keep getting a lot of backups, right? And this is something your mentor in the multifamily commercial space is going to force you to look at when you're considering a deal. Let's say you're going through the due diligence, you're looking at all the service requests, and you see they got to keep snaking drains. If you don't have the experience enough to know that they are addressing a symptom and not the actual problem, then all of your numbers are going to be off, because what they're trying to do is avoid fixing the major problem, which is a mainline replacement. And on a 25, 30 unit building, that could be a $25,000 situation. So what they're doing is they're having plumbers just come out, or maintenance come out and just snake the drains for, $250 a service pop, right? But if you don't know how to look for that, that's going to be a major issue for you. That's why it's important to have a mentor. Also, we only rehabbed in this example 4 units, okay? But what if it was the opposite? What if it was 4 units that were occupied and 6 units that were vacant, and we had to do a bunch of other repairs on the building? Well, ChatGPT is not going to show you all of the things to look for. What's up, Angel? All of the things to look for. For example, let's say you bring in your contractors and all of the people involved. They give you an accurate estimate on what it costs to rehab the building, and then you borrow the funds, boom, and you start doing it based off all the information you kind of piece parted from all these different locations, right? Well, guess what? Eventually, when you go to have the city sign off on one of those permits, the city's going to say, hey, wait a minute. You've improved the property past a certain amount and you triggered the life safety requirement. If you don't know what that is, you are going to learn 2 things really fast. 1, what the life and safety requirement really is, and 2, what it feels like to have to bankrupt an entity because you can't exit out of it. Life and safety requirement basically means you have to meet all the life and safety code requirements when you improve a building past a certain degree. What is life and safety? Okay, fire suppression systems, fire rated doors, don't have no elevator because that has to have its own certifications. And all of these things that they incorporate into fire and safety. That could be another 30% of your entire rehab budget. And if you don't have that, guess what happens? You're dead in the water. Trust me, I know, folks. I've had people call. I've had people call and say, "Hey, I want to sign up for your mentorship." And I go, "Okay, well, when do you want to?" Okay, great. We talk about when do you want to onboard, and most of these calls I'll take on my own. Well, now most of them I take on my own because we've got new systems and I need to make sure everything runs smoothly. But they'll be like, "No, I don't want any curriculum or anything. I just want the one-on-ones," and they'll just get me to consult on whatever it is that they're going through. because then they need me to bail them out, but they don't tell me until after the fact, right? So I usually ask them, well, what's the issue, right? What's the issue? And they'll tell me, and I'll just tell them, what it is right there. I don't want anybody, you know. Anyway, I do this to teach people, right? So it's not as fulfilling when someone just hires me to consult. I'll do it. It's not that I don't enjoy it. It just doesn't bring as much fulfillment because I take a lot of L's in the in favor of helping some of my students. All right. So we talked about how to pay out of your exit strategy when buying real estate. Let me get to some of these questions. We talked about how to pay out of your exit strategy on the residential side and the multifamily commercial side. I wouldn't recommend just jumping into multifamily commercial, folks, until you understand the real estate investing world. In the residential side, a lot of that information carries over, and a lot of that information you use in the multifamily commercial space. If somebody tells you just jump straight into multifamily, they are trying to sell you something. I'm not saying that they're trying to deceive you, but they're trying to sell you something. And I keep telling people, don't just jump into it because these people do good marketing. I understand the power of good marketing. Some of these people that pay $30,000 and $40,000 a month in marketing have tried to recruit me for TV shows and for other stuff, right? It's not really my speed. So just be very, very careful. Make sure you ask all of the right questions. Ask what guarantees people make. If you're going to sign on with somebody, it doesn't have to be me, but anybody you sign on with, what guarantees do they make? What happens at 10 o'clock at night when you got to redo your contract and you got a decision to make and that contract expires at midnight and your earnest money deposit is on the line? What are you going to do when you need to call somebody? How do they service that? What are you going to send an email to customer service? All right. So just ask the right questions and don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. The real people that are out here doing this, we love the tough questions because it gives us a chance to brag on ourselves. All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap it up. I got to get back to work. If you guys are interested in real mentorship, feel free, reach out to me. MeetOtis.com. All of my stuff is there. All of our pricing and everything is very transparent. We put it right on the internet. It's the same for everybody. We have a brochure you can download right from the site. Tells you everything you're going to learn. The only thing we leave out is a lot of the things that you're going to learn that we don't know you're going to learn yet. Because if it's my job to turn you into a real estate investor, everybody's situation is different after we go over the basic curriculum. We do continued education in perpetuity, right? But every situation is different. For example, one of you guys may have great credit, no cash. Another one of you guys may have great cash, no credit. So that's a different path for both of you, right? We can't fit everything on the brochure. My one promise is that I will turn you into a seasoned real estate investor. That is a guarantee. I will put that in writing until you physically tell me I don't want to be a real estate investor anymore. I will always create a space for you to come back in and get, whatever training you need for your situation. That being said, any other questions? Let me see. I'm going to scroll. We got a couple platforms going on. Let me see. California is really expensive. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just expensive. You get no value for it. Okay. Yeah. Let me see. All right. Actually more intrigued with commercial deals all the time. Yeah. Commercial deals that's kind of it's kind of in my DNA. Okay. That's kind of in my DNA. I had to, I went back in the multifamily commercial industry after the real estate market tanked. I lost everything. Bankruptcy, it was everything. And I'm not talking about everything. I'm talking about everything. I'm not talking about, I lost everything. So we started flipping houses. I didn't have the gas to get to the house to flip. So I'm talking everything. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So I went back into the multifamily commercial industry. I had to start at the bottom. I'm talking about making $15 an hour plus commissions leasing apartments. Like that's how bad it got. And, I ended up first of all, God always put you he don't always tell you what he's doing, but he'll be working on something in your favor. And he doesn't always send you the memo. So all you can do is approach adversity with a positive attitude, knowing that something is going to something's going to come out of that. And I didn't think that I was going to be teaching people at this scale how to invest in real estate because I didn't think that people were interested. This is just my life. This is just normal to me. Right. And I was able to, I didn't think I was going to be in the multifamily commercial industry that long. I was like, yeah, as soon as this real estate market bounced back, I'm out of here. And then, but that wasn't the path for me. I ended up staying and, I was a leasing consultant at $15 an hour. This is after I wasn't even heavy investing back then. This is 2 decades ago. So I was, $15 an hour, and then I became assistant manager, making $19 an hour. But they included my housing, so that helped a little bit. And then I became a manager of a small property, and then a manager of a larger property, and then a manager of a massive property, and then senior manager of a massive property, and then I skipped district manager and went to regional manager, and years later, that's where I ended up leaving at the corporate level. And at the time that I left, I had already made my first million and I was still at the job. Like my job, they could have not paid me for a year and I wouldn't even have noticed. Like that's how good things. I developed other businesses while I was working. I still gave them 45 hours a week. I was teaching, I was mentoring people during this time, running a brokerage, all of the things, the whole 168 hours in the week, I was using them all. I sleep 42. So, a lot of these things I didn't know, a lot of these things that I was going through. And it wasn't just multifamily commercial. Like I was a notary public, I was a realtor, I was a mortgage broker during this time for 13 years. Like all of the things having to do with real estate, I was just trying to survive. And I didn't realize that one day that I was going to have to teach this stuff, not have to. I was going to choose to teach this stuff. And everything just came, full circle. Happened to be on a conversation on Clubhouse one day. I guess I'm not gonna say who the name is because you can look at my profile and see who invited me. Can you still do that on Clubhouse? You look at your profile and see who brought you on. And I was sitting back listening. And again, you guys, real estate is my entire life. My father's been he's a real estate broker in the early 70s. He got licensed in 71. Like his license number has 2 zeros in front of it, right? So this is my entire life. So when I hear people talk about real estate, I can tell who's blowing smoke and who's not. I can tell who's new to it and that is flocking and who's flocking to certain terminology to appear as if they know more than they do. I understand all the energy in it, right? And I remember I was just in the audience, and these folks were up on stage and they were talking about, all these gurus talking about you can buy a house for no money. Oh, that's it. They're scam artists. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly these guys aren't who they say they are because one, just how they present themselves in general public tells me they're not really doing much because you got to really be careful in how you present yourself in the general public. Like you don't hear me cursing and stuff on here. Like I cringe when other people curse. Outside of here, I'm an ex-sailor. I will cuss like a sailor. But there's a time and a place for everything. And when people don't present themselves in a particular manner, I know that they don't have a lot that they're worried about losing because that's a major branding issue. But they were talking about this stuff was a scam and this and that. So I came up on stage and said, hey, it's actually not a scam. And I wasn't trying to be rude. I was like, no, it's actually not a scam. They've been doing this for a very, very long time. Buying property and just paying out of your exit strategy, not needing anything up front. But also, I explained to them that, it's not always that easy. There's it's nuanced, right? There's a lot of variables that can impact whether or not you're successful in doing that or not. And they said, all right, well, we'll give you 10 minutes. Explain it in 10 minutes. I said, I could explain it in 3 minutes. I just got to talk fast. So you're going to have to listen faster. So I started explaining, and I think it was like a minute and 58 seconds. They just kicked me out the room. So I started my own room. And I was like, hey, if you guys really want to talk about, I wasn't selling anything, right? there was no 4 Data Points Academy, right? But so many people gravitated towards it. I said, okay, well, let me just give them something that they can go protect themselves so they don't get conned by these jokers that I was just in a room with. So I developed the guide, the 4 Data Points Academy guide. And it was teaching you how to assess a deal, and I would give it away for free. And I would always get invited to speak at these events, these real estate events. And I would have that in my phone because if anybody was interested in getting into real estate, I could say, here, just take this and master that. And in the beginning, it didn't even have my contact information on it. So you couldn't get back. I wasn't selling anything. I was just trying to protect people. And then the demand grew and grew and grew. And I said, okay, well, look, let me just teach people the fundamentals. I'll take them through 7, 8 weeks and, and boom. So I at least know that when they finish that, they'll know what they're doing out there. And then if they have any questions, they can just come back. And then it morphed into something else. And then I had to continue. It just kept growing and growing and growing. And we didn't do any marketing. The only marketing we did was people that were in our program saying good things behind our back to other people. So people were just coming, right? And we didn't have any, we're going on year 5, but we didn't have any recurring costs. So the only way we could survive was, adding value to people, right? Because look, you mess up one time. I'm gonna go to Clubhouse now. I know folks listening on TikTok. I'm gonna go to Clubhouse now. Y'all know when somebody mess up, how they get dragged across these rooms. You see somebody, put a 1 in the chat on Clubhouse if you didn't see somebody on top, and then the next thing you know, there's a whole room about them embezzling like whatever it is. I didn't see it. I didn't see it a lot. I didn't see it a lot, and there's a lot of con artists out there. I get it. So we wouldn't have been able to survive if we hadn't really been adding value. And I took some enormous losses for branding purposes, right? Some enormous losses. So I say all that to say the stuff we teach is actually true. And if it doesn't work, there's a reason. We need to isolate what the reason is, and then we have to come up with a workaround. And again, it's not that it doesn't work, right? If I teach you how to change a transmission and you know how to change a transmission, and then you go out there and nobody wants to pay you to change a transmission, I did my job, right? So if you're sitting on the couch or whatever, you don't want to do anything, there's nothing I can do. But we're always looking for the thing that doesn't work, right? We're looking for whether it's a process, whether it's the way we distribute information, whether it's how we respond to people, but we're always looking for that thing. And I think being obsessed about focusing on things that don't work, I think that's why we've been able to develop into what we are. So a lot of cool things to come, man. A lot of cool things to come for Data Points Academy. We call it a real estate family. That's not the reason we call it that is because we do a lot of things that are you're not going to find in our brochure, right? If I'm meeting with people and they're coming to the weekly roundups every week, even if they're not actively doing the deal, and I see that there's 5 people, hey, I got 5,000, I got 7,000, hey, I got like 12,000 for my tax return, hey, I got 8,000 from. All right, well, no one can really. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but all my office addresses are at my attorney's office in Las Vegas, Anderson Advisors. So I'll put them together. I say, okay, oh look, let's just go flip something. So I'll go, this will be a good learning opportunity. People are stagnant, right? So let's go ahead and get people energized. Everybody put your money in the pot. We'll go ahead. I'll have the consultants put an entity together. We'll draft an operating agreement. Everybody will sign it. We know all the rules. Matter of fact, here's a guide that I want everybody to read before they join so we can manage expectations. I'll lead the entire thing. I'll take an acquisition fee, $5,000, because I'm the one that has to fly out there multiple times, right? And then I'll take 10% off the profits. And then this is not something I put in writing, but if we get too close to breaking even, because you're not going to hit everyone out the park, then I'll give my 10% back to the group. We're doing a deal right now that everybody else is, it's coming too close to breaking even. I gave up my 10%. I'm probably going to be in the hole about 5,000 when it's all said and done. But look at all the experience everybody got with that. Now, when they go on their own and do something, they have the experience. They've got one under their belt. And that operating agreement and closing statement is their evidence of that. We don't put that stuff in our brochure. That's just something that was an opportunity for our real estate family to get together and do some stuff. So that's the part that we don't share because there's an enormous amount of liability. And, I took on, I think Q4 of last year, I took on a little more than I should have. And it hurt me financially. Right. And that was for the benefit of other people. So we got to be really strategic in how we do that. But yeah, 4 Data Points Academy, that's what it is. Folks, we're going to wrap up. I think everybody on Clubhouse, you guys can see that link up top. That's for entrepreneurs. We started this conversation talking about the entrepreneurial stuff. I'm flying in every possible consultant you would need, even your funding, even the funding. We're even going to take care of your funding. So if you're starting a business, at least go to that and just download the brochure. I'm not saying sign up for it. Just download the brochure to see what we're going to do. Because if you are really starting a business and you're really serious about starting a business, I'm not going to have to tell you anything. You just see what we're going to do and you see if that interests you. If not, no worries, no hard feelings. I will be back on at, I think I'll go Thursday, 9 a.m. I'll probably open up a clubhouse room too. That being said, folks, we are out. All right. We are out. All right, clubhouse. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Let me see, make sure. All right. All right. We're good there. And we are going to stop the live stream. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.